What is data quality and why is it such a big problem? Data quality shares an origin story with building and manufacturer quality, but the story has some twists and turns. The history of manufacturing quality can be summed up from the time of the Babylonian king Hammurabi nearly 4,000 years ago up to the middle of the 20th century as being mostly the responsibility of the manufacturer or builder to avoid defects. Yes, buyer beware is still true, but for the most part, builders and manufacturers don't want their reputation tarnished and are mostly self-motivated to avoid embarrassing defects. But starting in the 1950s, just after World War II, a rather unexpected pivot in the history of manufacturing happened. In 1940, the U.S. Census was being led by a statistician whose name was Edward Deming. Deming developed statistical sampling methods that allowed for more efficient data collection techniques. These improvements to the census were so successful that the U.S. government requested his help for post-war reconstruction. Following World War II, Deming traveled with General Douglas MacArthur's Supreme Commander of the Applied Powers. The SCAP was responsible for Japan's reconstruction. Arriving in Japan, Deming partnered with Homer Saracen, an engineer focused on leading manufacturing quality improvements, who invited Deming to give lectures to Japanese business leaders. Deming then taught these leaders how they can apply the same sampling techniques like those he developed for the 1940 census. These business leaders embraced Deming's guidance and incorporated them into their company culture. In addition to sampling, Deming also developed a simple iterative process that it would fit into. It's called the Deming cycle, and it's basically just plan, do, check, and then act, whereby the word check really just means to sample. The best example of how Deming's data quality work has been woven into manufacturing is the Toyota production system, which to this day produces some of the most high-quality vehicles in the world, that is in terms of low defects as opposed to fit and finish. If you've ever heard of Lean Six Sigma or the Agile software methodology or test-driven development, they are all directly inspired by the Toyota production system. The irony is that while the Japanese auto manufacturers were using Deming's techniques to produce high-quality vehicles, it was not until the 1980s that American car manufacturers were doing the same thing. But for the most part, manufacturing quality assurance is now a solved problem. However, with data quality, we still have massive problems. Here are the 3 reasons why data quality is more difficult to solve than manufacturing quality. Reason number 1, the force multiplier effect. The same data defect, for example, the wrong address, must be corrected downstream over and over and over as long as the source system has not corrected the issue. The second big difference is what I would call a disconnect between the person who makes the mistake and the person who is impacted by the mistake. So for example, a low-paid temp worker are often performing data entry, and their mistakes are often not recognized until it's too late to fix. And then the third reason is that people have a preference for working on systems that capture and produce data over systems that analyze data. To quote Larry English, a data quality practitioner, nobody wants to work in a sewage treatment plant when they could be building factories that spew more sewage. To make matters worse, only the system developer can fix the system, unlike, say, car repairs or home repairs, which are a huge part of our economy. IT system repairs cannot be as easily compartmentalized. I'll now describe the 4 main drivers of data defects and what can be done about them. The first driver is poor controls during data creation and data capture. So here's an example. One company I work for misspelled my name while they were keying it into the HR system. And as a result, I had to spend 2 weeks of effort over 6 months of elapsed time to get my name corrected in each of these source systems. And to solve the problem, the company would need some kind of ombudsperson or someone that has authority to request changes to the IT systems or business processes. The second driver of data defects is side effects that can occur from data integration, which can lead to a kind of a corruption. So, for example, when you merge 2 tables together, you create what is known as a fan trap, and this can lead to duplicate rows. But you can see here in this example, if we merge these two tables, the call detail table and the work order table on the call ID, our call duration goes from 8 minutes to 16 minutes. The good news is these issues are caught early on and can be easily corrected, in large part because the person responsible for the issue will usually be able to fix it or address it, unlike the previous situation where the temp data entry worker is long gone by the time the issue has been raised. So this type of problem tends to be self-healing and is not a huge worry. The third data quality issue has to do with rule alignment. So take, for example, profit margin. In theory, this is just revenue minus expenses. But because there are all sorts of other rules associated with profit, including taxes and special exceptions, unless you know all of those business rules, you're probably never going to be able to reconcile your calculation of profit margin with the finance department's calculation. So when they compare the two profit margins together, they're not going to reconcile, and your profit margin is going to be considered a data defect. To solve this problem, departments like the finance department should be compelled to make their business rules transparent so that other departments can consistently reproduce them. The fourth and final issue that impacts data quality is what I'm calling category alignment. And this can happen to any company, but it tends to be the worst for organizations that have gone through some kind of a merger or acquisition, or it can happen for other reasons, like from a system migration or from parallel systems that are out of sync. A good example of this can be found in mining companies. So a mining company might purchase an operating mine like a gold mine, and this gold mine will have its own category structure for reporting on consumable asset expenditures like explosives or gasoline or aggregates and so on. But the new owner who acquires this gold mine might have other gold mines around the world which organize those expenditures under a different category hierarchy. So the solution to this problem would require the newly acquired gold mine to use the established consumable asset hierarchy, and that might require a change to the mine's accounting system. So, as you may have gleaned from my solutions, only the second one, the data integration side effect problem, is self-healing. All the other problems require a change or require additional transparency. While change is hard and data gatekeeping is common, I must point out that the stakes are higher than you may realize. This stuff is taxing on mental health and ultimately employee morale. So I will end by saying that clean data and mental health go hand in hand, and once we can clearly see data quality issues as a kind of Kafkaesque form of torture, then perhaps the will emerge to do something about it. But until then, if you work with data, take steps to protect your mental health. My name is Neil Hepburn. I'm a Gen A-oriented data architect consultant with over 30 years experience specializing in data warehouse and business intelligence systems. I can be reached for consulting or contracting at the following email address. That's all.